long enough to exist in the world for 5 years is just hi guys. Hey. So
5 years old.
Oh my god, look, we just screened in. So
Wow.
This is one of the few episodes that you'll ever see of the College 910 Variety Hour. Maybe that is pre-recorded, but we actually pre-recorded this, which is why my lighting is so lovely. But in case you don't know who I am or what this is, I'm Jess. I'm your local ACPC, and I work at colleges 9 and 10, go by she, her, and they, them. And this thing is the Colleges 9 and 10 Variety Hour. We're a weekly variety show. And pretty much what we do is whatever we want. Usually what we do is we interview cool people around campus that you would naturally have actually interacted with if it wasn't for the fact that a pandemic. But hey, if you're watching this in the future, enjoy the view. We look good back here. I think we look good. Now, as you can see, we have a guest. We have our guest, Sarah Harker, from housing at Colleges 9 and 10. But before we get into her, before we even touch her, Christian, move her away. Get her out of here.
No.
We are going to talk about our officially unofficial sponsor, STARS. So STARS is the Transfer and Reentry Student Service Center. Now, what does that actually mean? STARS provides culturally responsive, I'm reading off their website, but I'm going to dig into this, culturally responsive support to transfer students, reentry students, veteran students, and also students who do not have traditional family support due to a variety of experiences like foster care, homelessness, abuse, parents who've been incarcerated, and parents who, families who can't support. Like, there are a variety of reasons. I would lump everyone together, though you really shouldn't because these are different people. But if I was going to lump everyone together, if you're a student who doesn't have a traditional background, STARS is your place. I myself was a transfer student. I was also a student who did not have that traditional family support. And I was definitely a student who was on a 6-year track instead of a 4-year track. And I lived at STARS to the point where I actually ended up working there for my entire time as a student. And I ended up working there as a program coordinator later on. They are amazing. Their staff are just supportive and empowering and are advocates on campus to make things like housing and cost and just access more available. And keep in mind, for students who are not transfer, reentry, STARS students, UCSC's long-term goal is to be 50% transfer students. We're taking over. Be afraid. But for transfer students, if you're like, I'm the only one, I'm sorry, you're not. You're really not. You're not. You're not good. Oh, also, hey, for our students who are taking care of kids or who are taking care of younger siblings, STARS also has support resources for you. They have peer-to-peer advising. They have I think like monthly or quarterly socials. They have academic advisors that are geared just for you and your specific needs. And they also have a bunch of other amazing resources available, or can get you connected with amazing resources. So if you are an untraditional student like me and a good chunk of all the students at UCSC, you need to check out STARS. And talking about STARS, that's where Sarah and I met. And before we get into that, let's talk a bit more about Sarah. Sarah, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm Sarah Harker. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the housing coordinator at Colleges 9 and 10.
Mm-hmm. So how do we know each other?
We met at a Christmas party, at a STARS Christmas party, actually. My first photo of you is you with your dyed, like, reddish pinkish hair, pretending to eat a Christmas ornament that was this, like, round snowman, but was painted like a skeleton.
Oh my God, I remember this now.
Yes.
It was like a STARS Christmas social. There were gifts. You were standing next to the Christmas tree with your partner at the time. Mm-hmm. I instantly had a crush on your partner. And then turns out that did not work out for a variety of reasons.
Nope.
So we stuck it out.
No, we stuck it out. Yeah, no. Good times. My first photo of you on my phone is you, like, with your bike helmet on, like, ready to bike home. And now it's a photo of us from a different Christmas party. In a bathroom, actually, that was covered in Christmas lights and, like, mirrors.
Gay bathroom birthday. Oh God. That's another story for another day. If y'all want Sarah back to just share embarrassing stories about me, let us know in the comments below. But let's get to know you a bit more. So we know that you work in housing, and we know that you're housing coordinator. Now we're going to dive in deeper with that, but let's set you up as more of a person. Let's go into the Q&A variety 20 minutes. You ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's start out simple. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke, actually. I didn't have an opinion for many years. And then recently I went to a concert and they only had Pepsi, and I was like, this doesn't taste as good.
Okay, regular Coke or Mexican Coke?
That one I don't have a strong opinion. All I know is absolutely no Diet Coke and no flavored Coke. So, okay. Yeah.
Wait, why no flavored Coke? I can get Diet Coke. That stuff's nasty.
My mom got really into Diet Vanilla Coke, and it was all we had in the house for a while, and I just grew to hate it. I was just like, I don't like this. I don't like Diet, and because all the experiences that I had with flavored Coke has been Diet, even regular flavored Coke for me is just like, meh.
That is fair. Mm-hmm. Okay, cats or dogs?
Okay, this is where all dichotomies are false dichotomies. I love both a lot, but I am definitely more of a cat person. If my shirt is not a dead giveaway, I have a cat.
Wait, can you show us your shirt a little bit more?
Ta-da! I made it myself. So when you are a younger person, sometimes adults give you really good advice that you don't listen to. You're like, I know everything. So this shirt has a bit of a history to it. It's where I learned a lesson that my aunt definitely told me, which was, Sarah, no matter what you do, don't sew and have a lit candle at the same time. So this—
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, pause. Your aunt legitimately had a conversation with you about not doing something with flammable things next to a flammable thing.
Yeah.
Did that come up naturally, or was that like a spark note? Like she's making a fruit salad, and she's like, Sarah, in her head, she looks like the kind of girl who's gonna do this. Then says out loud, don't sew next to a lit thing. Or were you legit just sewing next to like a fire?
It was like, why are you? It was a spark note. I was visiting her, I think my freshman or sophomore year, and we were talking about sewing. She was making a nightgown. She's like, learn from my mistakes, never do this. So she did it first. To be fair,
she modeled it to you.
Yeah. So anyways, there's a hole in my thing. I didn't even like finish making the shirt before it had a hole in it. So yeah. But going back to cats or dogs, I love cats a lot, to the point where my first word was kitty. It was not mom or dad, it was kitty.
That's so cute though. Mine was banana.
Aww.
Christian, what was your first word?
I actually don't know. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it was pizza.
That seems completely accurate with your adult personality, so I support it.
Nice. Yes.
And I know you also have a cat.
I do. I would usually put him on screen, but he's recovering from some surgery. He's doing great. It was not routine surgery, but it was preventative surgery. And y'all don't want to see his naked butt and all his stitches.
His little like Bermuda shorts.
He has quite the bikini wax going on.
And I know your students who have interacted with you know you by either having to email you or your cat.
Yes. Definitely talk a lot about my cat. When students show up near the end of the day, I need something and I'm like, hey, you have to return this to me by a certain point. My thing is always, I have to take the bus home because I am reliant on the bus system. And I have to get on the bus on time because I have a cat at home who's on a diet, who misses me and my ability to make food. And usually they go, oh yes, we'll get it back in time so you can feed your cat. Which is very kind of them, because every day I come home from work, obviously up on campus, I get home, my cat's just sitting by the door, ready to be like, ah, Mom! I love him. He's a good egg.
We have that in common. Both of our pets like to sing. I think yours is a much better singer.
Yeah.
Mine is more of a screamer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, duper.
Oh, duper.
Oh, duper. I know we could go so in depth about Connor and cats. that we could fill the entire space of this hour. So if you want to see that episode, comment in the section below. We're not going to do that.
When
Instead,
I was in grade school, they had a game at a field trip where you and someone else had to talk about a different subject at the same time. You just had to talk for like 2 minutes straight. And the final round was you had to talk about the same topic, but not what the other person was saying. And the final topic was cats. And they eventually stopped us after 5 minutes because we could both talk about cats so incessantly. So that's my other fun fact about me when it comes to cats.
This person became your soulmate. You fell in love, got married, and then they went off to the cat war and they just never came back.
That's Connor's husband, actually.
Oh, poor Connor. Connor's your cat, right?
Connor's my cat. He has a husband. He's off at the war.
He's never gonna come back.
Never gonna come back.
Never gonna come back. Anyway. Now let's get into some deeper questions. My favorite deep question, as anybody who's ever watched more than one episode of the show knows, is what is your smallest fear? I think we all kind of know our biggest fear, but what's your smallest fear?
I'm currently living my smallest fear, actually. I have a deep fear of losing my fingernails or toenails. And
wait, what? I'm sorry. Wait, what do you mean by living? How do you live? Oh no.
So fun fact about the COVID-19 pandemic is that doctors are seeing a spike in foot injuries because people are home not wearing shoes. No. So this is a moment where please do not make my mistake. I decided to, try nailing something or using a thumbtack to hang up a picture. And I did it over the one piece of tile I have in my house and it fell on my toe. And the nail is going to come off sometime in the next 2 months. So I have a deep fear of losing my toenails and I'm going to be living that soon. And when I told my doctor that, he's like, thanks for being vulnerable. And I'm like, I'm literally just trying to be brave right now. Thank you.
I'm literally a ball of anxiety and over talking is my only coping mechanism right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
so yeah, my smallest fear is losing toenails. And we're about to live that fear.
Mine is birds. Oh, birds are so much better.
Birds are so much better than.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, but in general, you run into more birds on the street than, losing your toenail.
Well, yeah, but like when you see a bird, there's only like a 50% chance of violence, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I understand for most people there's less, but I have a deep fear of birds, so it's 50% at all times. But I feel like with losing your fingernails or toenails, like there's a higher chance because you're using them all the time. But for some reason, because I don't look at my fingernails all the time, like I don't get them painted, they're basic, I'm cool with that, and I cover my toes, I never think about it. But birds, I can't cover birds.
Birds work for the bourgeoisie. Do not trust the birds. It's a line.
It's gonna age so weirdly. That line is gonna age immensely weirdly. But your smallest fear is the loss. That seems like a huge fear. But okay. Out of curiosity, then what's your biggest fear? Like in comparison?
Comparison?
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest fear, honestly, is the environmental injustices we are seeing, and how that affects all of our communities, but especially like communities of color are facing the brunt of the environmental injustices that we're seeing.
Mine's the dark.
You asked for the biggest fear. If you want to know my biggest fear, that's what it is. You got the whole range. You got toenails and you got environmental
racism.
Disaster.
Yeah.
You asked. Lovely weather we're having. It's like nice and sunny.
I mean, for now, we'll see what happens. Oh no, we've gone down a dark path. Let's go back. Let's come back. Let's be clear. Nothing you just said was wrong or is an invalid fear. I should just know you better and know that these questions are going to get darker and deeper the more I go. With that in mind, or maybe not in mind, let's ask some more questions.
Not in mind?
So you were a student here at UCSC.
Yeah.
How many years ago? When did you graduate? Like how many years ago? And what was it like to be a student here?
Okay, so I graduated in 2017, so a couple years ago. I'm realizing that none of the students who were freshmen when I was a senior are still at university. They follow the traditional 4-year structure, which not everyone does. Being a student at UCSC was like a time of immense growth, but also, it's it also came with a lot of hardship. It's actually when I got my cat. My cat is an emotional support animal. Although right now I'm the one doing the emotional supporting. That's okay. And it's also when I first kind of like I don't want to say like got into housing, but got really passionate about certain aspects of housing. So when I was a student, as previously mentioned, our wonderful non-official sponsor, STARS, I also similarly could not go home for breaks or for summer session.
Yeah, that's a common experience for a lot of our students. And I know for myself, like I was lucky that I lived off campus and I had a place all year round. Because if I didn't, I lived on campus, I don't know what I would have done during winter breaks.
Yeah. As someone who lived it, I, did couch surfing for several years in a row, which gets a lot harder when you have a cat.
Because Connor was your cat at the time, and he's your emotional support cat.
Mm-hmm. And I know that one year he went and stayed with my partner at the time's family, and going 4 weeks without my cat was rough. But yeah. But otherwise, when I was a student, I also worked at the Lionel Cantu Center for 3 out of my 4 years, and that was a super awesome experience. I was there during when the current director, Travis Becker, first got the job. And that was really interesting, being like, new person, you don't know anything. And then getting over myself.
You were definitely like, let me get into character. Who the F do you think you are, random white guy showing up in my resource center?
With your guitar? He doesn't have a guitar.
He had a guitar?
No, he did not.
I just had like a cardigan.
Anyways, but yeah, no. He's great. I really enjoyed working with him once I got over myself, because I was a big bundle of nerves. But while I was a student, I studied politics and feminist studies with a minor in literature. Mostly I got that minor because I kept taking horror film classes. And then I realized it was like 3 extra classes until I could get a minor, and that was, worth it. So I took a horror film and a John Carpenter class with Marsh Lester, which was awesome. And then I took a vampires course and I forget what it was called. It had some fancy name, but basically it was video games as literature with Kim Lau, and that was also awesome. And yeah, so I ended up getting a literature minor just because. Yeah, that was my time at UCSC.
Very cool. Well, with that in mind, like, what is some advice that you really, really, really wish you could give yourself when you were a student, knowing what you know now? And maybe even better, what is some advice you wish someone had given you that you wouldn't have listened to when you were in college?
I don't think it really hit me until I was like midway through my sophomore year how vital it is to check your email.
You complain to me all the time about students not checking their email, and you never checked your email.
Yeah, no.
Okay, that's fair.
It feels like a very basic thing and something like, oh, I can do it once a week, but no, sometimes things change so quickly. Especially when you like walk all the way over. I lived at Crown. If you walk all the way over to Kresge for a class, and the teacher's like, hey, I'm sick, there's not going to be no class today, you're like, damn, I really wish I had checked my email. And then of course there's like bigger like things like, like when are you going to register for classes? So yeah, that's my main advice, is check your email. It feels very basic, but it's a lifesaver, or at least, a time saver.
So what's some advice that you wish someone had given you, even though you wouldn't have listened to it?
I mean, obviously don't sew with the flares nearby. But that's not really college advice. I can't think anything off the top of my head that is college specific, but I think one thing that I've learned is that when the little voice in your head says, hey, maybe don't do this thing, listen to your little voice in your head. Because I've definitely ignored it a couple times and then immediately regretted my actions. You know, like, hey, maybe
Can you give us an example?
Maybe you shouldn't try hanging this thing over your one bit of tile in your house. Maybe you should try hanging it up over carpet. No, it'll be fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine. You know,
about making bad housing repair decisions. So let's get back to your role as, you know, a person who works at housing. For those of us who don't know, who are either about to be our first frosh post COVID-19, like what? Or have never lived on campus. What does the housing department at 9 and 10 actually do? And what do you do in housing?
Yeah. So the first thing to note is that there's many different housing offices on campus. There's your local college housing office, which for us is colleges 9 and 10, and then there's the campus housing office. So colleges 9 and 10 housing office is going to handle your day-to-day stuff. It's going to handle your housing assignments, your lockouts. If you have roommate conflict, that's the resource you want to go to. And it's also going to be a place where, you know, you can meet and talk about what you need in a space, especially if you have a housing accommodation. That's when you would talk to me. My role as a housing coordinator in particular is, as this is LinkedIn, is housing coordination. So I look over housing applications, I assign students to housing, I manage room change requests when we get them, I make sure that all accommodations are being met, I handle communication, like sometimes maintenance needs to fix a shower and I have to tell the entire building, like, hey, during these 2 hours you can't take a shower because the water is going to be turned off, so we can fix the shower. I'm also the person who will let you know when, like, I'm usually the person who, sorry, let me try this again. I'm also the person who, when it comes time to apply for housing, I hold informational sessions where I'm like, hey, this is the housing that we have and here's what's available. I'm different than our housing office doesn't handle, like, I personally don't handle like roommate agreements. That'll be your CRE. Your CRE is your coordinator for residential education, and they're a live-in position, so they're also crisis response. They also supervise the RAs. The RAs are students residential assistants who are hired to live in their community and help build community, and also, you know, help with roommate conflicts. So what the 910 housing office does is handles all of that, but what we don't handle are things like billing. That's actually the campus housing office. Your meal plan, again, that's the campus housing office. And payment plans. So anything that has to do with physical money, that's going to be the campus housing office. Our office is going to be the ones who, when you're here, are going to help you get into your space, get situated, and be comfortable. One misconception that I often get is, well, does the housing office manage the mailroom? We don't. The mailroom.
You don't. I did not. I honestly didn't know that for some reason, and I used to work with someone really closely who did manage the Rachel Carson mailroom.
Yeah, no, the mailroom is actually done through because usually mailrooms are located closer to like the admin office than the housing office. It's actually it's an admin thing. So right now our mailroom manager is Rose. She's great. But so if you don't know where to get your mailbox assignment, that's the person you talk to, not us. But you can also look at the website. Both Colleges 9 and Colleges 10 have a mailroom, which will give you your address, but not your box number. And especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, it will describe the hours it is available.
So just to make sure, so Your role is, so College 9 and 10 housing does not handle all the housing on campus. It only handles housing in the communities of Colleges 9 and Colleges 10. So when people have issues with more campus-based things like billing for dorms, for apartments, I assume for meal cards, anything like that related to their housing and living on campus, they should not talk to you guys. They should instead go to the university housing department.
Yes. So the campus housing department has the easiest email imaginable. It's just the word housing at ucsc.edu. So yeah, they're the ones that you're going to reach out to. We have a couple people who handle, like, I forget their official title, but basically they handle the billing and they're super responsive and wonderful, and I really enjoy working with them. And I've only ever heard good things about working with these people from students, to be precise. But yeah.
Nice. And then if a student is living on campus, so usually they might be a fresh or a transfer, or a student living on campus for whatever reason, their first interactions with housing that are going to be really important are going to be actually with their RAs, which are other students who also are living on campus, usually on your floor in the dorms or the apartments, and are your first contact for like questions or housing disagreements, anything like that. And then you also have your CRE, which is your college
coordinator for residential education.
Coordinator for residential education, who is also a pro staff who lives on site. And they would be a person who you would get in contact with if your housemate and you are having a big fight and your RA can't help you. They would move up, or probably some other issues that might come up. They wouldn't go to you, but when they would go to you is if they wanted to change housing. Yeah, because you're the housing coordinator.
So I'm a housing coordinator. Yeah, so one thing that you are able to do is ask for a room change. In general, so how you start asking for a room change, fun fact.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
We have a frequently asked questions page. So,
are you trying to say that there's a page where I can ask all of my questions that are frequently being asked by other students?
Yeah, so if you're looking at the College 9 or the College 10 website, we currently have up the College 9 website, but they're practically identical. If you go to Residential Life and you hover over it, you'll see a thing called Frequently Asked Questions, and if you click on it, it will answer some very frequently asked questions. And we love it when students refer to this, because I've spent a lot of work trying to get the website to work for me. I'm not always the best with coding. And they have a bunch of frequently asked questions. So if you look at, can I change my housing? Click it, it'll pop up to where you can, it has the information on how to change your housing and where to initiate it. So the first thing that we ask students to do is just to fill out a form that lets us know who you are, what you're looking for, and where you're at right now and what you want in the future. It's a very straightforward form, at which point you actually meet with your CRE so they can determine whether a room change is appropriate. So if you're having a roommate conflict but you haven't talked to anyone about your roommate conflict, including your roommate, we are going to ask you to try working it out. Part of living on campus is the learning to handle conflict management. But if you are asking for a room change because
like your housemate has made the place unsafe, like they know you're allergic to peanuts and they keep bringing peanut butter in the house and eating it while staring at you in your eyes, that's creepy. That's real creepy.
And that's an extreme scenario, but like, let's say you're living in a space and it's not close enough to your classes. When we're back into physical classes, you can ask for a room change. Or if you realize that living with another person despite mediation is really hard for you and you want to live alone, you can ask to be like, hey, I'd like to be in a single. Right now, all residence hall spaces are singles, so we're seeing a lot less roommate conflicts in our residence halls. funny how that works if no one has a roommate. But yeah, so it's a super easy process to ask for a room change. We just want to make sure that you've tried to fix your problem before you just try to move, because during normal times we don't always have the same availability that we currently have with the COVID-19 pandemic, because we have very few people living on campus. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Having those conversations can be really, really hard. I think especially when you're just coming in from maybe living at home or living in a place where people already know you really well, and you're just meeting a bunch of random people that you might kind of know, right? If y'all, just personal advice, if y'all have any questions about how to have that conversation, there are definitely resources available online. You can also always talk to your RA. You can talk to your CRE and get that advice. And we also have access to couples counseling, which can include your roommates and your friends on campus under the student health insurance. And we also have a restorative justice counselor who is fantastic mediator, lovely lady, Vicky Duvall, who definitely comes in when needed on these kind of conversations. They can be intimidating and they can be scary, but I think once you get that point where the goal is just for two people to understand where the other is coming from, it gets a lot easier from there. Mm-hmm. Unless your housemate is legit just like staring at you while eating peanut butter. Skip all of that then. Just go right to housing, just in case. Maybe
you've told your housemate that you're allergic to peanut butter.
Yeah. But also if they're just staring at you in the eye during an afternoon snack, that's a little strange.
Yes. It's a little strange with the eye contact, but if you haven't described your needs, you might need to... Describing your needs first is really important.
So you describe that you're allergic to peanut butter and they're still doing this? Talk to housing.
Talk to housing, yeah.
So if the disembodied voice of Christian can pop in for a second here, what if I'm a student and my parent wants to know more information about, they're concerned about me and want to move me, or like, want to know what's going on? Where is that resource going? Where can I point them? Because I don't know. I'm just a student.
So the thing is, as a student, you have the right to privacy. So if a parent calls and says, my student, Bobbert McStudent Face, is having an issue, I actually can't really talk to your parent about your situation. What I can do is provide resources and say, hey, if a student on campus was experiencing these things, this is what they would do. And I would recommend they either call or email us. But we do occasionally do wellness checks for parents when they haven't heard from their student in a long amount of time. But most of the time if parents want to have a student moved or are having concerns, we actually want the students to advocate for themselves. Students on campus are, in general, adults. We do have some younger students, but in general, they're over the age of 18, and they need to be advocating for themselves. It can be a little difficult for parents to hear that, but we do our best to provide information, but I can't, as a housing coordinator, betray the FERPA rights of our students.
And what is FERPA?
Oh gosh, it is...
Like, if you're to summarize it in a sentence, because we could get into this all day.
FERPA is basically a student's right to privacy. It's a law thing. It's like HIPAA, but it's for education.
And it pretty much prevents people from randomly saying, like, tell me everything about this person. Mm-hmm. I know for a lot of parents that can be hard to hear. For a lot of our students, they're like, yes, privacy, finally, which is great. Because you have that right. You're an adult. You have the right to privacy. But pretty much the goal is to protect you, the student, and if there are parents listening, your students, from people who want their private information.
And it should be noted that there is a way that if a student wants their parent to be able to talk to us, that you can basically set, the student can fill out a form, which I'd have to pull up the link for it because I didn't think the conversation was going to go here.
Yeah, I didn't think so either, but we're good.
Where basically the student will say, my parent McStudent Face, is allowed to have my information, and we have a secret passphrase. Cats.
Or something like that.
And as long as the as parent mixed student face says, I'm parent mixed student face, my student mixed student face says that we can talk, and our secret passcode is cats, jazz hands, then we can talk to you.
And if that is something that you need as a student, then you can definitely talk to your academic college advisor. They can help you through that process. You can also go through the DRC if that's one of the reasons that you want your parents' access to your academic records and that academic information.
Mm-hmm.
With that in mind, so we've talked about room changes. We talked about the magical and beautiful FAQ sheet, which if y'all are thinking about it, you should be looking at it right now, like right now.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a big question that all of our students are asking right now, because last quarter I got asked by 5 different groups of students about this. What is fall housing going to look like?
So what we do know is we do know that we will be housing students. What we don't know is a lot. We're still figuring out how many students we can safely have on campus and what that housing configuration is going to look like. And until we have all these details ironed out, we can't have students apply to housing. In short, if currently right now apartments have a max of 4 people, it may still continue being a max of 4 people, but we don't want to have students apply for an apartment with a maximum of 4 people. And then we say, oh, wait, we can do 5 people. So everything that we say, like why there is no housing application and why there is no information, is because we are still figuring out what is going to be safe for students. Would I love answers? Yes, I would love to be able to give you answers and to have the answers myself. But right now, we do know that students will be able to come onto campus. We also know the 2 things we know: we will have students. And if you want to live in a community, you do not need to change your college affiliation. So if you live at Oaks College, or you are affiliated with Oaks College and you really want to live at Colleges on 10, you don't need to put in a petition to switch your college affiliation. You can just apply to live at Colleges on 10. So those 2 things we know. Anyone can apply anywhere. People will live here on campus. So yeah. When information is available, all students should be emailed from the housing email. That's housing@ucsc.edu. It'll probably also be blasted on all sorts of social media. But
I will make sure of it.
Yeah, you'll make sure. But until we have that information, we want to set up students for success, even if it means we have a big question mark on timelines. Yeah.
And it's really important to make sure that, I think one of the things that I think about strongly when it has come to this past year is that honesty. If we don't know what the future is going to look like, and we don't want to set you up to fail. Mm-hmm. And especially when it comes to housing, this basic need. Imagine, you sign up for housing, you cancel wherever you're living right now. So if you don't have a safe place to go back to, like you don't have a safe home to stay with or a safe family to stay with, you're staying in an apartment, you cancel your apartment lease. So you can go and live on campus, right? And then 1 week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, 3 months before you're supposed to move in, you learn that your housing is canceled because COVID cases have spiked, because a new strain of COVID had come out and people need to get revaccinated, because our safety procedures on campus are not working all of a sudden and we don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
It would suck to be stuck with nowhere to live.
Yeah, and the result is we've actually had students live that this year. After the winter break, there was a massive spike in cases on campus, and we had to push out move-in for anyone who didn't have a emergency need to be on campus by a month. And that was incredibly stressful for a lot of students. And I know really made students who had these things, who had these crises and this need to be on campus, suddenly have to do a whole extra step just to get the housing they wanted. So that's why we're trying to err on the side of caution, because the students I worked with who needed to move in that weekend were so stressed out, and I really don't want to have a student have to go through that again. I was more than happy to help, but it was kind of like, COVID.
It's one of those really shitty decisions where like you didn't make these decisions.
Nope.
I didn't make these decisions. Someone had to make these decisions about whether someone's basic need of housing was more important than someone getting a disease that could potentially kill them or create long-term disabilities and that they could potentially spread during a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine having to make that decision. This is not to scare you all from housing. We don't have like vats of disease to push. It's not like that. But it's one of the reasons why this information is going out so slowly, or it feels like it's not going out at all. Mm-hmm. We'd rather get you accurate, up-to-date information than have you make decisions that are going to blow up in your face, because we have to change them.
Yes. And if any of you are worried, well, will I be able, I am in one of these situations. I don't have a stable housing situation. I know that while my family has stable housing now, come fall quarter, it's really important I live on campus because they're going to downsize to a smaller apartment that's more affordable. We are aiming to house everyone who has a need to come to campus, but we need to make sure that for those who have a need, that it's safe or safer, that we lower any potential risks.
And just to be clear, students that would count within that need are exactly what you just described, right? There's also be students who are currently experiencing homelessness or know they're at risk of being homeless. Mm-hmm. Students who are in the who identify within the trans spectrum or identify within the queer orientation spectrum and know that they cannot comfortably be themselves or comfortably do them being a student at home, or mm-hmm. students who do not have access to things like Wi-Fi or electricity or an ability to safely do your schoolwork where you're at. Those mm-hmm. are all emergency situations.
Yes. And if you are currently listening to this and you're like, oh, that's me, I've been coming onto campus. I believe the spring housing application is still open. We have a limited availability at 910 because we have a lot of students here. But there is space on campus and you can still apply. It just might take a week or two to get your housing application processed. Though keep in mind, summer session is a couple weeks away and summer session is not going to be at 9 or 10 or at Stevenson or at Crown or Merrill. It's actually going to be at Porter College this summer. So keep in mind that if you move onto campus, you will have to move in a couple of weeks if you're going to stay here over the summer.
Yeah, and that's for a specific reason, just because since the pandemic hit, 910 housing staff has been going full throttle this entire time. So it's been like a year, and they've been on all the time, 24/7 through the pandemic beginning, the fire, then pandemic continuing up to now.
Yes.
And my coworkers
building great. A couple small repairs.
Yeah, they need some care. So you're going to have a lovely time in Porter. You're going to enjoy the Kresge Garden and the squiggle. Bless the squiggle.
Don't break the squiggle.
Huh?
Don't sit on the squiggle, though, because if it breaks, they won't fix it.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Apparently, if you sit
so much ukulele on that squiggle,
it can break. And it's broken before.
Oh, no.
So don't break the squiggle. It's an awesome squiggle.
It's a good squiggle. There have been many rom-com moments upon that squiggle that I will not go into depth with, but it is a beautiful squiggle. Mm-hmm. With all of that in mind, I wanted to talk a little bit more about something that you have always been a big advocate for on campus before mm-hmm. you even started working in housing, before you even started working at the university when you were students, which is like campus being open year-round for students who live on campus. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. So when I was a student, I lived with this constant knowledge that even if my space felt like home fall quarter, that come winter, I would have to move away from it for 2 to 4 weeks. And that come summer, I would have to move somewhere. I was able to stay at the village because that's where summer housing was for alternative housing. Somewhere alternative housing was. But every couple of months, I would have to move my entire life. And right now, UCSC does not have a year-round option that does not involve moving. We were open over winter break, which was really cool. But right now, there's no formal long-term year-round housing. Other universities do this, or do have year-round housing that does not involve moving, but as of right now, sorry, my son is blinding me in this very serious
Do your thing.
talk, and it's just like, ow, my eyeball. Hope that's not too changing of lighting.
I mean, it's almost like we're working from home. Like behind the screen is my kitchen. These things are gonna happen.
Corner of my bedroom that I've very carefully curated to look.
Oh, is that why you don't have any of your rat-related art behind you?
I do. It's up there. It says holy. So I got this piece of art. You can't see it because the art above it is personal art. Let's put it that way. But this is an art piece that I got from the UCSC print sale, and it says Holy Ratrimony, and it was one of my favorite pieces. And I saw it, and there was only one available on Etsy, and I was like, if I don't get this from one of our UCSC artists, I will regret it for the rest of my life. And it is such a good purchase. I will need to look up the artist, but Holy Ratrimony
so hard though.
I love your art so much.
We sidetracked so hard though. Let's come back to it.
Yeah, so right now we don't have year-round housing that does not involve moving. I know that it's been something that students and staff have advocated for years, but for reasons that I've never been made privy to, it just hasn't happened. Yeah. What regarding all that did you have questions about?
Oh yeah, I mean, I wanted to talk about that because I feel like it's this conversation that is not really talked about, but it impacts people so deeply.
Mm-hmm.
Like we hinted a little bit that both of us had backgrounds when we were at UCSC where we didn't have some place safe to go back home to.
Mm-hmm.
I legitimately had no place to go back home to. And I was really lucky that I found a really good studio apartment that I could afford and live on my own. Made a huge impact on my mental health, and not having to move regularly meant I could just be there.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing you through the years advocate for this, for students just being able to stay in one place, is always something I really admired about you. So I just wanted to showcase like you taking a terrible, like a really hard experience that you had to have regularly through your entire 4-year time at UCSC, and taking that and working and fighting for other students to not have to have that experience. We're not there yet. But also because I wanted to share this is a common experience that hurts students.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of the work that I did as a psych major on campus, I focused on PTSD, a lot of my research articles on PTSD, and I focused specifically on people who are coming from the foster care system, because that just happened to be the friend group that we landed ourselves in.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of like former foster youth and people with similar kind of backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And having to move around constantly, even if you know what's happening, has such a huge impact on your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had someone who also cared about this on the Variety Hour episode who does housing. And so I wanted to bring it up because it's something that is untalked about, unnoticed, and it's kind of just
Not by me. I notice it.
Oh, yes.
Just so you know, your housing coordinator at 910 notices and sees you. And when I say I feel you, I mean I feel you, because it was so hollow. Every spring break, I'd always get sick during spring break, but I'd spend spring break being sick and looking around my home and being like, in 11 weeks, this goes away. And I'm going to have to do this all over again. And it was not good. It's a very it made me feel fragile all the time. I would say for many years, my home is my cat because he's the stable thing. Although currently he's a little wobbly.
Well, that's because he's highly medicated and it's just had major surgery.
Yeah, I have a bad feeling he's about to start trying to scratch his cone. So if you start hearing from my end, it's my cat trying to scratch his ear.
Yeah, I think, it's very easy when we reach out to our housing coordinators to think like they really don't understand what we're going through. And maybe they don't. Like, we haven't cloned you and put you in all the housing offices yet.
Oh no.
But I think you're one of the few people on campus that I really, really sincerely believe when I tell students, like, you need to talk to our housing coordinator. She understands what you're going through and she can help.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a powerful card I get to pull out of my pocket, where I can sincerely say it. Like, if you go to Sarah, she will help you. And if she can't help you, she'll get you to someone that can.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll also show you pictures of her cat, which I wish we could show right now, but he's highly medicated.
Mm-hmm. I would, if he wasn't so highly medicated, I would have been like, and this is my cat. Earlier you asked, what is a piece of advice that I would not have listened to? And I think this conversation actually does bring up a piece of advice that I would not have listened to, which is the earliest you tell someone you're going to have a problem, the easier it is to have someone help you. I have such a hard time asking for help, but if you let us know 2 weeks in advance that you're going to need help, we have 2 weeks to find you a solution. If you give us a day to find a solution, we will do our best. But we're able to give you better solutions the more time that we have. So stuff like year-round housing. If you let us know, hey, I'm gonna need to move in the summer, and I don't know what to do, we will have, at this point, a number of weeks, because I don't actually know what week it is. I think it's week 2.
Oh
no.
I think it's week 2.
To figure out where to get you to summer housing. You know?
We'll get you that help.
And we want to help. Or at least, I'm not gonna say at least we want to help. Like, no, we want to help.
We really do.
There goes my cat scratching. I hope y'all
poor Connor.
Poor bud.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your immense amount of knowledge and experience, and your story. I really hope that whoever is listening, whenever you're listening, you get a lot of good advice, like don't sew next to an open flame, and maybe feel a little bit more invited to reach out to the housing department at your college or colleges and ask for a little bit of help.
Mm-hmm. Or your advisors, or whatever help you're gonna need.
Your random supervisor in programming. I can't do much, but I am entertaining. With all that in mind, I do want to do a bit of outreach before we close out this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Now, usually I would have like a beautiful poster to show you, but we're actually kind of pulling this out on the fly. So, as many of you all know, during spring break, there was an attack on Asian women in Atlanta, Georgia. This was a targeted, racist, anti-Asian attack. And it sadly is nothing new. And I say that with a lot of anger and despair, honestly. Since COVID has hit the United States, there has been an immense uptick of absolute assholes attacking people who are Asian or Asian American in our country. It's part of a long history that the United States has played a long part in, but it's flaring up even more these days than it has in my memory. So what Colleges 9 and 10's activity department and APERG are doing is on Thursday, we are hosting a visual and restorative space over Zoom from 5 to 7 p.m. If you go to our Instagram account, we're going to put up a feed post with a link to the event. Students are completely welcome we're going to make space for Asian and Asian American identifying students to work with Audrey Kim, our lovely CAPS representative at colleges 9 and 10. We're going to have a restorative space, welcome to everyone, with our lovely restorative justice counselor, Vicki Duvall, to talk about how to apply restorative justice to what has happened. And we're going to have an educational space for our students who are just clicking into what has been happening and want some guidance on what they can do to change things, or at least support their Asian and Asian American friends, family, and community members. And that space is going to be hosted by me. Everyone is welcomed. And we hope you show up. If not for yourself, then for others. Again, that's going to be this Thursday from 5 to 7. If you go to our Instagram, you'll see the outreach and you can follow it from there. Now, that's a heavy topic to end with, but I do want to say again, thank you so much for being here, Sarah. Thank you for coming to the Variety Hour. As per usual, we are our beautiful weekly thingamajiggy that happens every week on random topics. If you are listening and you're interested in taking over one of our Variety Hour episodes, please email us. I have like 3 slots that I do not have filled for this quarter. Please comment below, and we'll get you on here. But until then, this has been Jess, your local ACPC, and this has been our lovely guest, Sarah Harker, your local housing coordinator. And we technically still have 5 minutes. So Christian, do you want to do like an early fade, or do you want us to just keep talking?
I mean, if there's nothing else, we could fade.
Yes. Wait, Sarah, you want to say more?
One final thing that is an FAQ in my life. I did not name my cat Connor. It's not a Terminator reference, unfortunately.
What? I forgot that was a thing. I forgot Terminator existed. I just thought Connor was a man's name.
It is a man's name. It is many genders' name. It does mean hound lover. I understand.
You named your cat dog lover.
I did not name my cat. He came pre-named and it suited him. So that is my final FAQ of my life, which is no, he's not named after the Terminator character.